Whether you're a new user or an existing user of the Hospital to Home Pathway, I think it's important that you hear from others using the platform. We went to Great Ormond Street Hospital to meet with Alicia and Kate so that you could hear directly from them about what they have to say.
I've been the ward manager both pre-LTV Pathway was in and post, all I can say is that it was extremely difficult before a discharge coordinator and the LTV Pathway was in. Having both of those combined things, actually we've dramatically decreased the length of stay for LTV patients here at Great Ormond Street Hospital. So I'm a huge advocate for using the live pathway.
I'd probably use the pathway about 3 times a week in order to update Fit for Discharge, to update any of the ventilator settings. We can upload documents like the equipment list, which is really useful for the community team, a home assessment, which is really useful for the wider team, any documents that is valid for that child that can be shared through the acute and community. So I'd probably use it about 3 times a week. It helps me in my job role prioritise exactly what's needed with the red, amber and green system. It also highlights to me if things aren't being met within the national guidelines. I think it's really useful as well. You're able to pinpoint when a child was fit for discharge, so you're able to escalate to commissioners if the child's been fit for over 90 days. Actually, they should be out, and we're able to escalate and get the discharge moving quicker.
In terms of the discharge tracker for escalation of things, if a child's timeframes are being breached, then that's useful for me to know so that we can, as Alicia said, highlight to the relevant people and try and find out why timeframes are being breached and whether or not we can overcome that.
Before the pathway, things took a very long time to organise. Organising meetings, you're speaking to multiple people in the community as well as the acute service. So the pathway reduces that time, most definitely.
It's created a forum where it's cut down on time so that you've got a live pathway, is what it is, for staff to input minutes and send them out directly rather than making your own agenda, typing them up on Word, then sending them out individually to all the members of the community teams and in-house teams. So I think for continuity of care, for dissemination of information, I think those things are really key. And again, for every child that we've got, if we've got an MDT happening in intensive care, or we've got an MDT happening on the acute respiratory unit or my unit, transitional care, every agenda is the same. So every child needs to be discussed in exactly the same format. And that, for me, is very appropriate to make sure that every single area of the discharge has been discussed at every meeting. And it's key in a multidisciplinary team meeting to have each area of that represented. So it just gives it a good format in order to have the meeting in.
So after each section in the pathway, it has an action point list, so you're able to document things that are needed, and it's reflected in the report after. And what we like to do is look at the action point list before starting the MDT to review to make sure everything's been done, and if it hasn't, then we're able to follow up and ask why things haven't been done. But it's a very useful tool, the action point list, because you can send it out as well in an email if things aren't being done.
Also, it's quite a secure environment for children's details to be kept. So before the pathway was in, obviously we had our own local records and we were sending them out. Some people have nhs.net accounts, some people don't. And actually, if you look at safeguarding information being sent out, I think that's really key for me as a manager. I think keeping your children safe and their information to going to the people who need to know the information is a really key thing.
We use it live and it's on our board so everyone can see, so you're able to see exactly what was discussed at the last MDT, and you're able to review all of the action points as well. So we use it live so it's up to date, everyone can see it, and nobody can say, oh, this wasn't discussed, because actually it's there and everyone can see it live. I think the MDT minutes are really useful for parents. They're able to see exactly what's discussed. We use the same agenda. It's very structured. It's got lots of information in, and it's very clear and easy to read and follow. So I think parents really find it useful having the MDT minutes. That's what the feedback's been.
I think the whole process of having access to the minutes from previous MDTs, having an up-to-date action list, and also a discharge tracker which tells you what's green, what's amber, what's red, and what's the most pressing priority. I think you have to use everything in its entirety for everything to become effective, because just because we have an MDT on one day using the pathway doesn't mean to say that we're not on the pathway every day. And that part of that is your discharge tracker, part of that is your fit for discharge dates. So I think that all of those things are as important as each other. If we want to look back in retrospect at something that may or may not be discussed, if someone has a query, then obviously it gives us the opportunity to go back to hard evidence to say, yes, we discussed this, you said you were going to do this, and we are still waiting on that action. And I think that gives me some reassurance in terms of making sure that we're doing the best thing for the child within their discharge process.
The pathway has definitely allowed me to spend more time doing my role, working on the ward, supporting families and parents and children. It's definitely freed up my time.